Okay, welcome back to our XML Nintex Workflow Cloud journey. So I want you to have a look at this create a string action. I'm basically just using this as a notepad. So this is some XML that we created in the previous video. And as you can see, if we add more and more and more and more, this can get pretty messy, right? With different company names. And then of course, you'll probably add more information, like maybe employee count or revenue or things like that. So it can get pretty messy. Now, the good thing is, all you're talking about is building the XML, right? So the workflow will actually build all that stuff for you. So there's very few situations where you're actually going to be looking at the XML itself, right? So users are definitely, or end users are probably not going to see this. But in order to make things a little bit easier in regards to querying specific data, I wanted to cover something where this is going to be more about XML and it is about Nintex Workflow Cloud, but there's a reason why I'm doing this and why it's going to make it a little bit easier. So in this case, what I'm going to do is, instead of doing something like this, I'm going to actually create an attribute in this node called name. And you can also add other attributes as well, and you can add data into the node as well. So it's completely up to you. And then you can also add other nodes within that. So again, this can get pretty complex. So you could do things like employees. Let's do that, employees, and then you could have nodes within that, which could be employee and could be John Smith, and then you could have another one, and so as you can see, this can get pretty messy. So you can definitely do that, but having the attribute there makes it a little bit easier for you to query that data later on. So let's get rid of this action. And we're going to go into this update XML. I've added 3 update XML actions, and I'm going to add the nodes a little bit differently. So you can see I've got the name attribute in the company, and then inside that I have a value, and that value is going to be essentially the employee count. That could also be an attribute if you wanted to. I'm just going to show you a way of doing this. So add a child node into the XML root node. So I've got Nintex 1000, I've got another one which is Wombat 500, I've got another one which is Koala 200. Then I'm logging the XML, and then to query a specific node, in this case I'm only interested in the company called Wombat. So I've got the query, the XPath query as //xml/company, and then the attribute you put in square brackets and you put an @ in front of name, that's the attribute name, equals Wombat. So that's going to find the specific company node in the XML which has an attribute of Wombat. I'm getting back the text and I'm storing it in something called employee count. So in this case, I'm actually going to publish this. And then I'm going to run it. So I'm going to go over here to refresh my workflows. I'm going to manually start this XML test 3. Okay, there it is. I'm going to go into my instances. There's the XML test 3. It's already run. So let's go in here and have a look at what the data looks like. Now, I've been running a lot of stuff in this tenant, so it's actually quite busy in a little like a test development tenant that we have. All right, it's being a little bit busy. So let's do the workflow testing. So again, this is going to run this test. It should run all the actions. So the first one shows you what the XML looks like, right there. The other one is what is the value for this specific node. So we looked at company where the name equals Wombat. I want to get that value back, and employee count 500. So you can see how easy it is to query that data. So like I said, the cool thing about this is you can build your workflow where it's gathering all this information, it's maybe doing some calculations, putting it all together in some XML. Later on, and I'll show you this in another video, you can actually query that data, especially if you have multiple values, store them in collections, and output them into a document. Okay, hopefully this helps. Again, want to make sure everybody understands that although we're putting this XML together, it only lives for the instance of this particular workflow. So once the workflow starts, it creates the XML, it does all the manipulation of it, creates nodes, queries data, modifies nodes, all that sort of stuff. As soon as that workflow instance ends, it's gone, right? Unless you store it somewhere, like for example, a database or a SharePoint list or in Salesforce, this data is gone. It's literally just temporary storage for this specific workflow instance. All right, hopefully this helps a little bit, and with the next one, we're going to go through and see if we can do some timing to see how long does this take to create all these nodes. So we're going to do some looping and querying and things like that and get some numbers out. All right, if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me.